High Performance Vet Pro Radio.
Welcome to High Performance Vet Pro Radio. Here, you will learn everything you need to know to become a high-performance veterinary professional. We will focus on optimizing your sleep, fitness, nutrition, mental performance, stress response, and work-life balance. Please enjoy these professional interviews with cutting-edge content from Dr. Jennifer Quammen and human performance coach Ryan Smith from hyperfliving.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to tonight's webinar.
Ryan has his radio DJ voice on.
I do.
It's a little bit of a head cold. Not exactly the most fun way to spend Valentine's Day.
It is not. Thank you for that, honey.
You're welcome. So Ryan's had a little chance to recoup today, and I'm glad that he is here with us. But certainly he's going to be a little bit more in the background here. At least that's the goal.
It was like my birthday when you were in the background.
Yeah, and we have you like propped up so you won't tip over.
I'm good.
Yeah, well,
I'm just a little stuffy.
It's going to be great. So thank you all for joining us tonight. This is Valentine's Tuesday for us.
Yes.
Happens to be my very close friend's birthday as well. So
I thought I was your closest friend.
No, not you. So I've already said happy birthday to him, and I don't think that he will be on this webinar tonight. But anyway, we would love to get started. And so tonight we're going to talk about lifestyle-friendly veterinary career and whether or not it is. This is a slightly abbreviated version of a talk that we gave early in January at AVMA Veterinary Leadership Conference. It was really well received, and I think that hopefully this audience will resonate with us as well.
If you can hear us okay, just put a 1 or a yes or something like that in the chat box so that we know that you can hear us.
Man, Laura is on it. She had that
is.
typed. So, okay, well, good. So audio is working. So we will get cooking with this. If you have questions throughout, please feel free to type them in the chat box. I think Ryan's got a couple questions that will pop in throughout the webinar.
Just got one up there. It was added
Perfect.
Through you. So
and yes, so you'll see Ryan will be Jen tonight as moderator because sometimes she sets these things up and the best laid plans.
That's right.
So we will go ahead and kick off with the presentation.
Yep. So how many people think veterinary medicine is a lifestyle friendly career?
Am I allowed to participate?
You are allowed to participate. Yes.
I think, well, I'll hold my opinion and see see what others think.
Okay. It might help if I actually switch over and make it so that the screen is being shared.
We're going to share. We like to share.
So shrink this down.
So you can put some comments into the, you can either post comments into the question specifically, or if you want to put them into the chat box as to whether or not you think veterinary medicine is a lifestyle-friendly career choice. Yay!
Yes.
Perfect.
And then the question becomes is, what is a lifestyle-friendly career choice?
That may be part of the problem with answering this, but we'll figure that out.
Yes.
So tonight
I think I have a pretty lifestyle-friendly career.
Do you?
I do.
Okay, good. We're going to move past the gentleman with the cold medicine on board. And on to our presentation for tonight. So lifestyle-friendly veterinary career.
Yes.
What is it? How do you get it? If you already have it, how do you keep it? Things of that nature.
Yep.
So as with all of our webinar, web classes, whatever we want to call these, I like the term webucation. But Ryan's not with me on that one. I think I got a big eye roll actually on that one. We would very much we appreciate you being here. So thank you very much. We would love for you to be present in the moment with this. So if you're watching live, just sit back and chill a little bit. If you are listening to this on replay, then enjoy, try to absorb some of the info that we have here for you, and be aware that if you desperately want the slides or any of these things, you can shoot us a message or something, and we can get those to you as well. We would, although we are pretty tech savvy people, we would like for you to be with us. So put away social media. You don't need to be Instagram or snapping at the same time. I know that's hard for all of us to do, but it is important. And then obviously if you have questions, please feel free to throw those in the midst, and or we will answer them during and after as well.
Yes.
So who we are, and I think most of you probably know us. So Jennifer Quammen, I'm a veterinarian. I work in private practice and predominantly small animal. And what else? I'm a little bit involved in organized medicine. So I do some things for my state association and the AVMA. I finished the Future Leaders program last fall, so I'm now an expired leader. And I think that's kind of it. Pretty involved in the Veterinary Leadership Institute. And so I probably know some of you there, or if you've not been to VLE, you may run across me at some point there as well. Ryan, how you feel about introducing yourself?
So I am not a veterinarian, and I have no aspirations to become a veterinarian.
Good.
Especially at almost 50 years old. I guess I could, but I don't want to. So my background is human performance. So I have a master's degree in exercise physiology and biomechanics. I've worked with endurance athletes, runners, triathletes for years, those executive athletes that want to do Ironman, they would come to me and look for me for the training, not just for the training for the event, but also how do they balance that 20, 25, sometimes 30 hours a week of training that would go on top of their really busy lives, on top of also managing a family, also top of managing their nutrition. So all those things kind of came to me, as well as then the mental performance part of it. So I have a background in hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, that whole sports science and mental performance aspect of it. So that's where I come from. And we treat veterinarians like they are professional athletes, mental athletes, but they really are physical athletes as well. Just like a professional athlete, you have to be on top of both mentally and physically. And we feel that if you're going to be that professional athlete in the career, you need to train yourself like it. So you need to eat, work, train, do all the things, recover just like a professional athlete would. So, and then that becomes a lifestyle-friendly career when you have the ability to do that. You know, you look at the professional athletes. So we just finished with the Super Bowl. So that's obviously a professional athlete's sport. So, those people, they're now on their recovery phase, but at the same time is their whole life is built around being that professional athlete, and all the things that they do every day plays into that. So we want you to think about doing the same thing. Yes. So there we go. That's who I am.
Perfect.
Yes.
So we have come together, used our forces to help veterinary professionals thrive, more than just survive. So we can talk more about that if you're curious. Query us anytime, and we'll go into that. So we love this question. I know Ryan put this in here as well, but do you think that being in veterinary medicine is a lifestyle-friendly choice? We'd be curious what you think about this. I will tell you, in the audience that we talked to recently about this, it was a mixed bag of conversation, and we had a fairly diverse age group, probably 60 people or so in the audience, and there was a whole plethora of answers around this, and I think some of it is mindset and some of it is age. There's a lot of things that go into that. But again, this may or may not be something that you've ever really considered. Most of us that are in this profession, whether you're a technician, a practice manager, an assistant, we're just very drawn to this. We're very empathetic, very compassionate people. And in many ways, we can't consider doing anything else. But is this profession, this career that we've chosen, is that something that is compatible with a friendly or a well-rounded lifestyle? So may or may not be something you've thought about. It's certainly something we have thought about. And so for us, the way we looked at this is looking at overall, what are the generations, who are the people that are in our profession right now? What do they look like? How do they think about this? Looking at what truly defines what lifestyle friendly, what defines maybe what it isn't, and how, if it's not being lifestyle friendly for you right now, you have that opportunity to make that transition for yourself.
Right. So
we have in the world right now, we have several generations that are in the working world. And for us in veterinary medicine, there's three predominant generations that are out there. And when we think about them, or if you ask the general population, there's some thoughts and some maybe themes that come to mind. So one of the groups we look at is baby boomers. So these are people that were born mid 40s to mid 60s. So maybe for some of our current veterinary students, these are your parents. These are, just in a different, are your parents are they're not in that age group.
They're not.
They're a little older.
Yeah, they were born in 40 and 41. So
Right.
they are what's commonly considered the greatest generation.
Yeah. So just an age group beyond this. So what we generally think when we think of baby boomers, again, especially in this very tech savvy world, we tend to think they're technology averse. They're very penny pinching, that when they retire, they're going to, just flip the whole Social Security system and they're going to bankrupt the United States, and we're all going to be in a bit of a challenge there. And they're maybe not experts. These are people that are kind of able to do lots of things really well, sort of the jack of all trades, I guess, in a sense. Those tend to be the things that come to mind when you ask an average audience. What you'll find, though, I don't know if you want to talk about this some.
So, and as the later boomers are now 53 years old. That's kind of the end of kind of the cutoff point, I guess, so to speak, of the boomers. But fact is that they really are technology savvy. They grew up in a time of exponential growth of using technology. If you think about during their generation and growing up, they watched people go to the moon. They watched in a decade send somebody to the moon, which would never ever been considered before. So not only they launched somebody, put somebody in orbit, and then they went to the moon in a 10-year span. They have seen we've seen color TV, we've seen the telephone. Telephone had been around, but like the cellular communications, all these things kind of come around from a technological standpoint. Computers in cars. So much that has actually happened. The computer was actually designed, developed, and kind of came of age, so to speak, in the boomer generation. So really, they're not technology averse, but they use technology for the sake of what it can do, not just for the sake of using technology.
Because it's cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 82% of the internet they use it for instant messaging, banking, downloading, music and movies. I mean, so again, my parents they were born in 1940, 1941, do all their banking. They use instant messaging. They do all of that stuff on the internet. They both have iPhones, so they're pretty technology savvy. They feel like they're not, and they feel like they're really far behind, but they really aren't. 55% of them have purchased through the internet. So you would think about that they're technology averse. They're not. And more than 90% of them are financially stable. And they hold 70% of our current disposable income. Yeah.
Valuable piece of information if this is a group that we're trying to reach out to.
Exactly.
To work with or to work for or to get as clients.
Right, exactly.
Those things.
And if you think about many of the current practice owners, especially the smaller practices, a lot of those are baby boomers. Yeah. So you work with one currently.
I do. Yes.
Yes.
And he is more tech savvy than he thinks he is.
Yes. Yep. That's they very much have that self-doubt when it comes to technology.
Yep. So what about the Gen Xers? So
Which
this
is
is
us.
where I fall in as well. So what we think when you think about this generation overall is that we're a bunch of mall rats. We really watch the tech industry grow a lot. And we tend to be offspring of the greatest generation, again, like Ryan's parents, or early boomers. So my mother and father would be both within the boomer, they would be both in that boomer generation as well. We tend to be thought of as, or again, this kind of generation, and these are people that were born in between the 1960s, 60s and 70s, essentially, into the 80s a little bit, and there's always a little fudging on how these numbers shake out.
Right.
They tend to be thought of as a group that is into instant gratification. There's just no way that you can delay anything, like got to have it now, or I have to have it yesterday. And then there's also this perspective that if some new technology is good, more must be better. So,
Right.
you know, we see things come online, and as far as new cars, new advances in audio equipment, audio-visual equipment, and we automatically think if a little bit is good, then more must be even better.
Yep.
So that tends to be the things that we think about the Xers.
Yep.
The Xers really, though, are kind of this forgotten middle child.
Right.
So when we came into being, we actually were in a worse financial state than the boomers or the millennials are, and we'll talk about the millennials next. Again, it's just a different perspective in how this group of people kind of grew up together. And again, we're looking predominantly at a United States population here, or at least North American, if you want to think of it. We tend to use technology for the sake of using it. I mean, it's not that it's completely natural necessarily to automatically have the cell phone, but once we had it, we use it. Like there's no
Right.
question. There's no going back.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, and for me, I can think about, you know, the video games and things as a kid. It was always, you know, when Sega came out or when Nintendo came out and when Apple Computer came out originally. Mm-hmm. And, you know, all these things were, you know, we didn't need them. We really didn't have enough use. There was no internet. We had bulletin boards and things like that. And we thought it was cool to have these things, but we really had no use. And basically they were glorified word processors at that point, right? Yep. So, yep. But we had to have those. And mm-hmm. I remember in the 80s having a computer, had an IBM, and it had 2 floppy drives. There was no hard drive on computers back then.
It had the big floppy drive.
Yeah, they were the 5 1/4
mm-hmm.
inch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and you know, so there was so much that was there, and I remember having like a dial-up modem. So it's, you know, had to have all of that mm-hmm. stuff.
Yep.
I remember wanting cell phone in my car, but I had no need for a cell phone in my car.
Right.
You know, yeah. So, but then we kind of got slapped as far as adults in economically. So we have the downturn, the first of the late 90s and 2000s, we got an economic downturn that was kind of rocked our world. So we were kind of entering the workforce, so to speak, in that late 80s, early 90s, late 90s, depending on where you fall in the generation. So we had the kind of a 90s downturn. We had the tech bubble of the 2000s. So I worked I was a stockbroker in 2000 when the tech bubble broke and when it burst. And it was obviously devastating. I made it kind of through that whole process. And then about the time we're recovering from that, so a lot of us lost our retirement plans, all those things because of the tech bubble. And then, which was around again because of technology, just for the sake of technology, right? Mm-hmm. It was, you have a .com company, start it, and you're going to make money, and there was no plans around how to profit the companies. Mm-hmm. So we lost the tech bubble. Then about the time we're starting to recover, that's when the housing crisis kind of hit. So that was in the late 2000s. So this Gen X generation has gotten hit multiple times and basically wiped out our savings. And we don't know how to quite recover from it because we follow many of the ideologies that come from our parents' generation. Mm-hmm. So we kind of got hit kind of hard, and we're this middle child syndrome that we're smaller, and we are now going to be taking care of not only our millennial children and the Gen Z generation that comes after that, but we're also having to take care of the older boomer generation mm-hmm. parents and that greatest generation parents. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to figure out financially how to get things done. Mm-hmm. So everybody with us so far, can you hear us? Everything good? Let us know if you're following. If you have zoned out and snoozed because we're talking about the generations, wake up. So
millennials.
Yes.
So this is the last group or the biggest other generation that's actually in the workforce in the U.S. right now. And so when we think about millennials, I think the word that comes up probably more than anything is entitled, and then lazy probably after that. And then people very much relate to this whole everybody gets a ribbon kind of a thing. So it's participation trophies. And that's really the perspective of what millennials are seen as.
Right.
Easily distracted, very unfocused, constantly flitting from here to there, just because there's not this tendency to stay with one path. They're sort of bouncing around from here to there. The other term that comes up quite a bit is narcissism with that. And then we have a link in here, and we're not going to show it tonight specifically, but there is, and it's really interesting. Some millennials feel really strongly about it, and some other generations feel strongly about it as well. But Simon Sinek, he's an author and he's a speaker. He gave a talk late 2016, probably November, December. I don't remember exactly when it came out, that has hit a storm when it comes to the internet. So if you go to YouTube and just type in Simon Sinek millennials, you will find it. There's about a 15 or 20 minute version, and then there's a cut down, maybe 6-minute version
that he presented somewhere else.
Exactly. He's done this a couple times, and it talks about the millennial generation and some of the things that actually creates the perception of what we have of them, and what their obstacles and what their opportunities are as well. So if you've not seen that yet, please go and have a look at it. There's also then a response to it. It's had millions of views at this point.
15, 20 million views at this point. And it's really the, when you listen to the generations talk about it, and I think for the other generations, when you're looking at a Gen Xer or a boomer, it's an aha moment. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. For the millennials, I think what happens is when he's at the beginning talking about a lot of things, they end up shutting down and not listening to the end of it because they feel offended by it. But I think there's there's stereotypes for a reason. It does not match every single person, but so we had some feedback from that as well. But the truth is that this is not the millennials, right? This is what we think about them,
right,
but it is not them in any way.
Right.
They truly are exponential thinkers, and they're entrepreneurial thinkers. So exponential thinkers think about, how do I take a technology that's already out there and use it to 5 to 10 times multiply what we already have going on. So the thought process of like the 3D printers that came out for rapid prototyping of equipment. Well, then somebody said, well, what if I use, skin cells, or what if I use, what's that?
Like heart.
Yeah. So cardiac cells. And I actually start using that to create, and stem cells, right? So if I use that and create organs, right? So nobody would have ever thought about using 3D printing to print organs, right? That's exponential thinking. Again, Uber, this is okay. We have most of your cars sit about 70%, 80% of the time, they're just sitting. And well, what if we can put those to use, right? That's how Uber kind of came about. Airbnb, your extra rooms, all those things. How do we, get, exponential thinking out of all of these types of things? And that's where they came from. They really grew up watching their boomer parents climb the corporate ladder, and they say, I don't want to do that.
They watched them work all the time,
right?
Never be home, never make a game, and or an event, and they think, okay, that got them where they were. It got them the nice big house, but at the end of the day, they maybe weren't that happy, or they weren't perceived as that happy. They didn't see their parents that way, and so they just know, they may not know exactly what they want to do, but they know that they don't want to do that. Right. And so I think that's where we wind up with a little bit of conflict sometimes, in our practices and in the general workforce these days. Is there some difference of perspectives there and kind of ways of thinking. So the other thing about millennials that absolutely is the truth is that tech is like an automatic. Like it's not, they don't have to think, oh, I need to bring my phone, I need to type this in. It's completely natural for them to reach out into a social network, whether and to flex to new social networks, because of course those things are changing over time. Facebook has probably been one of the longer standing, and now Instagram, Snapchat, I think are kind of hanging for a while. But think about the MySpace and the Vine and the this and the that have been here and gone. So they will flex through those things as well. the other thing about millennials, and we often get this question, and it's a really common conversation, is about millennials in the workforce and how do I hire a millennial and how do I retain them and things of that nature. At the end of the day, they are very, very driven by what their bottom line impact is. It's not necessarily about the bottom line of finances. It's like what's the thing that's driving them, what's feeding them more than just dollars and cents.
Yep. Does anybody have any different opinions on how these? I mean, so if you fall into one of these generations, kind of give us some feedback on what you think about your generation. Are we on target here? Because this is where the research is showing, as well as observation. So there's a lot. So if you feel strongly about any of these, whether good or bad,
Yep.
let us know on that too. Because obviously we want to update this, because this is when this goes out to the various generations. We don't want to offend anybody, but we do want to raise awareness on all the things that happen too.
Absolutely. So that just gives you, so for us, it was giving some idea of, and we'll still please, type in your responses to Ryan's question, but overall, we just wanted to have some perspective of like, this is the group of people that we are working with day to day, whether you are in academia, whether you're in private practice, whether you're in industry, these are the people and the generations that we're generally encountering in our day to day. So when we think about it, so if we take that and we look at the traditional thinking of veterinary medicine, there's this funny little cartoon about, the life cycle of a veterinary student going from an egg through the 4 years of veterinary school and into adult mature veterinarian. And generally speaking, veterinary students are, these are really smart, really determined, very type A individual. They have some sort of animal background. They were very successful at studying, and obviously they've academically done well to get themselves into veterinary school. They study, they go to school, they potentially go to residency, and then they go to practice. Beyond that, then you think about, okay, well, I've tried to practice. Now I want to maybe expand back or go back to where home is for me, think about starting a family or laying down some roots. And then this is the place they're going to maybe stay a little bit longer term. And what you'll find is people go from school to residency or internship, and then into private practice or into industry, wherever that's going to be. And potentially then if they're an associate, they progress into being an owner. And that's sort of the life cycle of a veterinary student and a veterinarian in the most traditional sense of the words, wouldn't you think?
Right.
From what you've seen, doesn't that resonate with you?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, again, it's going to vary, but I think when we look at the traditional path and where the business of veterinary medicine, I would say, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
So again, when we think about, is veterinary medicine lifestyle friendly? So what isn't? So for me, that's always the question of, what isn't friendly about it? So we're absolutely expected to know everything. We're the expert of everything. You need to know about a chicken, a horse, a dog, a zebra, everything you can possibly imagine. And we all know that, whether you're a technician, whether you're a practice manager, whether you are a veterinary student, the minute you have that label of veterinary attached to you, people think you know everything about everything that is not human, and maybe even about humans as well. We have this challenge of never being off. So I not often, but I've told this funny thing about when Ryan and I, when we would be places talking, just in a social setting or whatever, I almost never introduce myself as a veterinarian, because as soon as you do, and as soon as and I was a technician before I went to veterinary school. So as soon as you introduce yourself that way, you automatically get the question or you get the diatribe about someone's pet, and that's all well and good, but we all need a little bit of time to be off. And I don't think that we get that, or we don't take it. That's one way of looking at it as well. We are in a profession where there's a lot of traditionalist thinking. So the clients expect us to do things the way we've always done it, the way Doc so-and-so did it 40 years ago, and for the exact same amount of money. Well, medicine changes. And I don't know that people really consider that. And again, we have to take some responsibility for that as a profession, and to training our clients and our colleagues that way as well. So then there's these other things that we'll just talk about. And I think probably most of you have seen and heard some about them, but compassion fatigue. And this is specifically fatigue and emotional distress resulting from chronic caring of others' needs. So for us, we're a very caring industry. We're taking care of our patients. We're taking care of our clients. We're taking care of our coworkers. And that causes massive emotional distress to us. Burnout is that physical or mental collapse from being overworked or overstressed. These certainly have some overlay, but you can, again, just so that we have some common language to speak from here. And then there's another term that you may or may not know about that's moral fatigue. And so this is the situation where you have the training. So I'm the veterinarian that knows that I can fix that dog with that fractured femur. And the client says, can't do it, can't afford it, euthanize the dog. That's these things happen to us day to day, but that is really very challenging for us because, again, this creates this dissonance in your head of you went to school, you learned all these things you're supposed to do, you know you can do these things, but you're not being empowered or able to utilize the skills that you've developed. And so it tends to wear on us. And so that's where this idea of moral fatigue comes from. So again, just some of these things about our profession in general that make it not lifestyle friendly. Now, there's certainly parallels on the human side as well. Dentistry, think about mental health professionals. There's a lot here as well. And so just to kind of give you some perspective. So now that we have some of those terms in mind, we found this little cartoon. Probably some of you have seen it, but it's this idea of what are the sleeping positions of different professionals. And you'll see, so for those of you that are listening audio, so it shows, people laying on their pillows. And so it shows a teacher, and it shows a lawyer, and it shows an engineer, and it shows a veterinarian, and people are laying in different positions sleeping. The sad thing is that the veterinarian is not in their bed. And so again, we all know that you get those things called out, you get, you're working overnights and all these things. So it's, there's a little bit of truth to it. There's a little bit of funny to it. But there's also, I think for me, a little bit of sad to it as well. And we've had, while we've been talking through some things, we've had some interaction within the comments about the things that make our profession not lifestyle friendly. And Jeannie has said, these are things that are validating and are empowering for her to hear because they resonate for her. So I think those are things that we all need to be aware of. So on the flip side of the things that aren't necessarily good for us, what about the things that are lifestyle friendly? What would you consider, lifestyle friendly to be? So this could be having a day off of work. Boy, isn't that a novel concept? Seeing your family, maybe taking your dog for a walk, maybe riding your horse, very unique. Eating an actual real meal, maybe even one you've prepared yourself that didn't come in a brown bag from a fast food restaurant. That would be awesome. Maybe going on a vacation. So if you're a practice owner or you're an associate, can you take that time to walk away from the business for, even 48 hours? I would challenge you that not everyone can do that. What other things? So what are those things that would be, considered lifestyle friendly for you? Do you have other thoughts on that?
Well, I think that idea that it's okay to step away, that it's okay to think about how else can I run veterinary medicine. It doesn't have to be done the same way it's been done for 100 years and 150 years. And when we look at the educational system, how it's built around it, I mean, it's okay, you're getting the same education that you did 50 years ago in many cases, but now things have exponentially grown so much now that you have to know all of that stuff plus the extra stuff on top of it and learn it in the same amount of time. Mm-hmm. So then you've got that, you have, just so much that kind of goes along with this. It's got to be done the same way it's always been done, right? So, and we see this exponential growth of the things like telemedicine that are coming, right? Mm-hmm. We see things that are, other ways of doing the job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, those are just things to get you thinking a little bit. The other thing that people have popped in and said about lifestyle friendly is being able to actually call in sick.
Right.
Being able to say, I can't make it in today. And I've had that pull as well. You get clients that specifically, and I will tell people all day long, I do veterinary medicine. I don't do it really any different than anyone else does. I don't think when it comes to the nuts and bolts, but we all know that clients and patients develop such strong bonds with us that it's it can be really alarming and disconcerting to people if they see a different veterinarian, and so that, I think that pull of like, we have to do it, we're these independent people, and we can't take a day to make ourselves healthy again. I think that's also a very valuable thing to think about. And
then dealing with the person on the other end that they scheduled to see you, and then they may not get to see you, and then they feel betrayed because they didn't get to see you, and then they lay that on you as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a very much, whereas if you go to your regular doctor, many times you're going to go into a practice and it's whoever is available, mm-hmm. right? So you may not always get to see that same person. Sometimes you will. Depends on. Yeah, and again, it's expectation setting. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for Ryan and I, we just wanted to step back and have a look at where are we at with things right now, and what can we do moving forward to actually help change the face and the momentum of this profession. Because every single one of us that are listening in to this call and that are participating in this, we are all part of this machine. Our technicians, our assistants, our kennel people, our reception team, our clients, we're all our patients. We're all a big piece of this. And again, I think there's a lot to say for personal responsibility here, and how do we move the needle forward. So these are some thoughts that we have on how we can actually modify things. And again, these are more high level thinking, but I do think they will resonate with different generations, and potentially different parts of this will resonate with each one of you. So if we think about designing for the future, so the veterinary schools are maybe the place to start, and maybe even farther back than that. There's no question that we're seeing more and more what would be considered non-traditional programs. So you see schools that are teaching, rather than traditional didactic lectures, 3 years and then 1 year of clinics, you see places that are doing more problem-based learning, because at the end of the day, veterinary medicine is about a strategy of figuring out and working through problems in trying to get yourself down to diagnoses. And we don't always get answers, and that's okay. But there's a lot more of this non-traditional sort of thinking. So whatever your opinion about the for-profit schools and the island schools, they do things a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. And I know for me, it's different. It's out of the box from how I was educated, but I don't think it's necessarily wrong. Again, they're utilizing what they have. I know Ryan and I were on one of the Caribbean schools last spring, and Ryan said, if I were going to go to veterinary school, this is where I would want to be. I mean, these people, they just look at it in a different way than just the stodgy old way it's always done. So I think that's something to think about. We're doing a better job of teaching wellness and self-care to students. We're doing a better job with the VBMAs, and also with some association with even business schools or corporate practices in teaching people about business. And so ultimately, what's the possibility? Where are the things that this profession and this industry can go? And I know what I see, at least, and what we see in this profession right now, is the traditional way that we've always taught and the traditional way we educate. It's hitting a point where we're not going to be able to sustain this. We all can sort of see it coming, the amount of debt, the amount of challenges that are coming with that, and then the paycheck at the end of that. There's reasons why people are not choosing to come in this profession, or they're getting in and then they're saying, I'm done, and they're peacing out. Right. So finding different ways to sort of move that forward. Right. And that may be redesigning how we educate people, and that may be a piece of it. So something to think about there. Yep. And I think, again, that designing the future, when we're talking about even that, so the debt load, all those things, and then we keep rehashing about that as well. So when we talk, going back a few weeks ago, where we talked about the language of success and failure, when we talk about, the debt, and we're just constantly rehashing that, reliving that, and telling everybody that it's there, then nobody ever gets into the thought process of how do we overcome that. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that it's there, and I'm never going to overcome that. Right. It's just problem. Right. Yeah. Okay. We kind of had a comment on that the other day in the group as well. So absolutely. Anybody thoughts on that? Just kind of, if you're with us and you've got ideas or that resonates with you, let us let us know in the comments too. We want you to stay participating.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a little bit longer webinar than we normally, web class, whatever we want to call it, than we normally did. So thinking about, I know Ryan mentioned before telemedicine, and that's kind of thrown in here as well. So again, how do we design for the future of educating our students? Well, what do we do with updating the current model of what we're doing? There are still a lot of mom and pop small business owners out there, but ultimately there's a lot of corporate practices as well. So Banfield VCA, they own a pretty good chunk of the veterinary marketplace right now when it comes to private practice. And there was a big buyout just a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now, it was mentioned. And so those things are becoming more and more systematized. So there are some good things to that, because potentially you're going to have more wellness programs. You're going to have large corporate employers that are looking for ways to keep and retain their employees. And if you're in one of those situations, how do you make it successful for your younger, your millennial associates? So how do you engage them in that process? Is it, I'm just going to be an associate here for this many years and then I'm going to go move on and do something else? Or is there another way to actually engage them and say, hey, what do you think is going on well here? What could we potentially modify? And it's not change for the sake of change. It's change for the sake of like improving it for us and for our patients in the long run as well. And I think that's where telemedicine can come in, is that we can, and we're already all doing this in a lot of ways. I mean, we're all getting Facebook messages and texts and all those things from our clients about our patients already. But if we're going to be at the forefront of this, the clients want it, they will utilize it. And so how do we do it in an appropriate way? Right. So I think
especially
those are things.
This millennial generation, is they're the ones that are going to be coming on with the buying power. So in the next few years, so currently the boomers still have buying power in the United States, but over the next, I think it's 5 years.
Less than that.
Yeah, less than 5 years. I think by 2020, we've got the millennials are going to be taking over the buying power.
Yep.
So, and they definitely want that. I don't want to have to go in, drive to a veterinary office, take my animal in. I want to be able to get this in a much more efficient and effective way.
Right.
So I think there's a lot that we'll see that will happen there. And so it's the consumer who's going to be driving telemedicine. And I know that the organizations that have been, so AVMA, the other organizations, it's huge on their plate right now. You were involved in in one of the practice advisory panels on that, but I think they're trying to get a hold on it because it's coming faster than they can handle it, and they're still in such an old way of thinking in many ways. Right?
We're steering a pretty big ship.
Yes, yeah. As I said the other day, it's like steering the Titanic, but the Titanic's on the bottom of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a little bit of a challenge.
It is. So let's kind of move on. There was one thought though that I thought about that. Updating the current model, though, if you are an existing practice and you're bringing in the millennial generation, we had a really kind of heated discussion one night at dinner at VLC about this. There was a lot of kind of conversation over there, but it was the millennials say, just give us a project. It can be anything, and we will research and we will bust our butts to get it done. But then you had the boomer population that was also at the table said, you haven't earned the right to be given that project yet, right? Because you haven't been around. So again, it's that changing the way of thinking. All you got to do is give up a couple things and let them make some improvements. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, that just keeps everybody kind of thinking forward. And so for us, that's where we're going to kind of get this transition of, okay, if you're a boomer, your mindset could be that it is, I love what I do. And if I stop doing what I'm doing, I don't know what else I would do with myself. Like, I go to work. This is what I do. I'm a veterinarian. This is my identity, right? And so there's that's very much a traditionalist way of thinking. Gen Xers are kind of, I have to keep doing it the same way I'm doing it, or I'm going to get run over by these millennials. And again, the millennials are seeing and thinking, well, I've seen how they do it, meaning the Xers and the boomers, and I know there's got to be a better way. So they're not saying it's necessarily wrong what has been done. But for example, there may be a way to take the 64 pages of charting that are being done and handwritten and transition that to something electronic that's more flexible, more, again, just more easy access and it's more natural for them. Where in the boomer is saying, I don't know if I'm quite ready for that. So again, it's not necessarily that anybody has a wrong perspective, but it is just being open to the thought processes of others.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Janine had said it's hard for her to think about moving to the primary clientele being millennials versus the boomer, but she hadn't thought about the change in the consumer side, that it's
absolutely
them that's driving it.
Yeah. The millennials are very much in the next couple of years going to be the major buying force. And so these are people that have pets. They don't necessarily have children. A lot of them are college educated and they're willing to do some things. And again, you just look at even the pet industry when it comes to pet food and pet clothes and all these consumables, the millennials are spending a ton of money there. And so I think as a veterinary profession, we need to find ways to leverage that in doing what we're doing as well, in maintaining us as the experts in animal health. So moving forward, again, rather than being in that stuck mindset, again, if we look at these generations that are within our profession right now, what can we do for each of us that are within our generation? So could the boomers learn the strong value of their mentorship? You know, can they have an associate who may not want to work 60 hours a week, but this may be somebody that wants to work 20 or 30 hours a week, but still leveraging them and using their ability to mentor them. And the boomer taking a little bit of a step back. Again, you don't need to completely go away because, by the way, the millennials don't want that either. They may not want to say that, but they don't want to be out on their own. They're not quite ready for that. And again, this is where Simon's talk can give you a little bit more insight on that as well. But they want to have some of these little projects that they can be successful in. And so that's a place where you can provide some mentorship. If you're an Xer, why not take some of that expertise and become a coach or a consultant? Why would you not, if you've grown a practice or a series of practices, why would you not share that information and utilize that for other practices or other markets, even if you're going to go to the next town, rather than keeping it in that one little bubble? Why not think a little bit beyond just what we've always done? You can be more than just an associate to an owner. Right.
Your legacy doesn't have to be in the one practice that your father opened or your or your uncle or whatever it was in your small town. That can be part of your legacy, but at the same time, as the millennials come on, this is your legacy. It may have been, that's so and so's practice, but it's how do you expand your legacy? And I think it's both for the boomers and the Gen Xers, because again, if you've got somebody who's 53, 54 years old as a boomer, they need to be thinking about, okay, what's my exit strategy and how do I leave a legacy of myself? Right. With that 200-year message that we've talked about.
We haven't talked about that in a while. Yeah. And so the last piece of this, engaging the millennials to use their experiences to grow things exponentially. And we didn't talk about, there's a whole concept that we had broken out in this about exponential entrepreneurship. And we mentioned it a tiny bit with that concept of Uber. Why would you spend 40 or 50 grand on a car that's going to sit idle 80-90% of the time when you can just call up an Uber that you only need for that little bit of time? You use it and you move on. Well, what does that ultimately do if it takes on, which it has? What does that do to the car industry? Why would you go out and spend $40,000 on a car? So again, it's not a wrong way of thinking. I think a lot of people that are 30, 40s, and 50s even think, well, why do they think that? I think in some ways they have a potential to grow this well beyond what we see right now.
Yep. And I think even so, if we look at the hotel brand Hilton, right? They have a whole hotel chain design that is actually going to be built around millennial, which are smaller rooms, but actually have more common area space that actually has Wi-Fi access and more networking communication access in bigger areas. But the rooms themselves are small, so that they actually have it is a smaller price. So basically what they want is they want a place to stay, but they want to have their access to all the things that they want as far as connectivity. Right. So they're like, just give me a room that I can sleep in that's clean and nice and has that functionality, and I'm good with that, but just don't charge me an arm and a leg.
Yeah, I don't need the palace.
Exactly.
I just need to, what's the efficient thing to, and they're, again, the millennials are a little bit more conservative with their spending as well.
Right.
So again, being aware that lots of companies have already seen this. So
right.
how do we leverage this?
Yep.
So that is kind of our take on lifestyle friendly, looking at the generations within veterinary medicine, where they are right now, how we could leverage them going forward. And so whichever of those generations you might be in, or again, look at the people you're working with and think about, or your clients, again, think about this from your client's point of view. How are you reaching those millennial clients? And how are you retaining those millennial clients? It's probably pretty different than how you're reaching and how you're maintaining your boomer clients. And there's still no question the boomers still have a large chunk of disposable income. And again, as a practice owner, as an entrepreneur, those are things that you need to have in the back of your mind. But being forward thinking about like what's coming. So, this idea we've talked about a lot, the idea that a manager is somebody that's dealing with like now, whereas again, an entrepreneur or a leader is more thinking about the forward momentum of what's coming down the road. So having a little bit of a forward insight onto that.
Yep. And leaders and managers are not the same things.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So in the grand scheme, I know this was a little bit of an overview kind of flyby of this, but hopefully it just kind of opened your mind a little bit. It's been a tiny bit longer than our average, so I appreciate everybody kind of hanging with us. We have another webinar, and I have forgotten when it is.
It's on the 28th, but we actually have not set the topic yet.
Oh, perfect.
So we don't. We've been trying to
hold, please.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll have something on that, and we'll send it out in email and post it in the groups as well. But that's So we've had some suggestions.
Yes.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah, we have a handful of suggestions as well.
So we'll probably do something. We also have coming up in March. We're waiting kind of on the final details, but we'll actually be doing a webinar for the Muse, the actual meditation headband company. So we're gonna how we utilize that with companies. So that'll actually be one of our webinars next month as well. So we got some more things coming with the podcast as well. So if you're a podcast listener, the High Performance Vet Pro, there is about 20 of them so far from where we had done them before, and actually got to go in and add some of those old ones that kind of dropped off and put them back in. But and then these webinars, if you are watching the replay, that's awesome. If you only want to hear it, you can listen to it from a podcast standpoint as well.
Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us. If you're here live, we appreciate it. It is, again, a Valentine's Eve.
Yes.
And so now go, eat some chocolate and, field phone calls from clients about that. I'm not really sure. Yeah. But anyway, have a wonderful evening. We will be in touch in all the various media. And if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to us and look for our next webinar in about 2 weeks. Yep. So
speaking of chocolate, don't forget about the food psychology thing. So we've got a package that is, so just kind of if you're like struggling with the food, we asked a great question the other day. So it went out in the email today that was, do you know what to do with eating well and maintaining healthy weight? And if it's no, or is it, I know what to do, I just don't seem to do it. So that's where kind of food psychology, and we've got a little bit of a month-long coaching program with some things coming in there. So if you've got questions on that, ask us as well. So I think that's it. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack the last there.
No, it's okay. We'll move on. So have a wonderful evening, morning, whatever time of day it might be for you. And thank you very much. If you have questions, again, please shoot them in. We didn't get a bunch live here, but lots of really good comments. Thanks for everybody being engaged. Yes. And we will be back to you soon.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at High Performance Vet Pro Radio. We hope to hear from you soon. Like this episode? Leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. It helps us to reach more veterinary professionals. For more information or to contact us, please visit us at highperfliving.com. Until next time, remember to live every day with intention.